Close your eyes and listen to the silence. Beneath the road of our modern world lie a vast, quiet graveyard of eternal city. Today, we stand in places like New York or London, convinced of our permanence. We believe our steel and glass will defy time forever. But history tells a different story, one of fractured empire and vanishing map. 2,000 years ago, citizens in the market of Babylon or the Forum of Rome felt that same unshakable security. They believed their world were invincible and their God eternal. Yet, one by one, the light went out. Great library burned. Jungle winds strangled placed war and desert sand drifted into the bedroom of Imperial. Some cities were murdered by volcano, others were choked by drought, but most mysteriously, some were simply abandoned, their people walking away as if they intended to return but never did. In this video, we aren't just visiting ruins, we are traveling to the age of human memory. We are uncovering 10 legendary metropolises that once ruled the world, only to evaporate into the shadow of history. These are the ghosts of human ambition. Let's begin our journey into the lost. Babylon, the golden city of hubris and dust. If there was ever a city that defied the hate of human ambition, it was Babylon. For nearly 2,000 years, this name was synonymous with power, luxury, and the very cradle of civilization itself, situated in the fertile plains between the Tigris and Euphrates River in modern-day Iraq. Babylon wasn't just a city, it was the heartbeat of the ancient world. At its peak under the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar II, it was likely the largest city on earth, a simmering oasis of blue tide and gold that seemed to defy the harsh reality of the surrounding desert. To enter Babylon was to enter a dream. Imagine walking toward the eastern gate, a massive entrance draped in deep blue glazed brick, adorned with golden dragons and pools that seemed to glow under the relentless Mesopotamian suns. Beyond the gate lay the processional way, a road paved with limestone and pressure, leading the way to the Atamanenki, a towering ziggurat that many believe inspired the biblical Tower of Babel. This was a city that reached for the heavens, a place where priests track the movement of the star with mathematical precisions and where the first law of justice were etched into stone. But the true crown jewel of this metropolis was the Hanging Garden. Legend tells that Nebuchadnezzar built this large mountain-like terrace for his wife, Amethyst, who longed for the green hill of her homeland. It was described as a marvel of engineering, a series of ascending tiered gardens filled with exotic plant and tree, kept alive by an ingenious irrigation system that pumped water from the Euphrates high into the air. Whether it were a literal garden or a poetic metaphor, it represented the ultimate triumph of man over nature, a man-made paradise in a land of dust. However, the tragedy of Babylon is that greatness often bred a dangerous kind of pride. The city becomes so wealthy, so decadent, and so confident in its massive wall, which were said to be wide enough for two four-horsed chariots to pass each other. Thus its belief is were invincible. But history is a cruel judge. In 539 BC, the city fell to Cyrus the Great of Persia, not through a bloody siege, but through a brilliant trick. The Persians diverted the water of the Euphrates, allowing their army to wade into the city through the dry-up riverbed under the cover of night. The fall was slow but inevitable. As the centuries wore on, the trade route that one funneled the world wealth into Babylon began to shift. The political center of gravity moved to the Mediterranean, to Rome and Greece. The grand irrigation system that sustained the garden fell into disrepair, and the soil turned salty and barren. By the time of Islamic conquest, the gate of the god was little more than a collection of crumbling mud brick mounds. Today, Babylon is a haunting landscape of reconstructed war and ancient dust. The gold is gone. The garden has returned to the earth. It serves as a stark reminder for every superpower that has followed. No world is high enough to keep out the process of time, and no city is too great to be reclaimed by the desert. Babylon, the city that once taught the world how to live, ended as a silent lesson in how empire die. Pompeii, the city frozen in a scream. If Babylon were a city that faded slowly into sunset, Pompeii was a city that was executed in its prime. Located in the shadow of the picturesque Mount Vesuvius on the Bay of Naples, Pompeii was the ultimate Roman getaway. It was a sun-drenched resort town, a place where the Roman elite built lavish villas decorated with intricate frescoes, and where the street hummed with the energy of nearly 20,000 souls. It was a city of wind, gladiator, and commerce, a place that felt vibrantly, unapologetically alive. But in the year 79 AD, the citizens of Pompeii didn't realize they were living on the doorstep of a monster. To the Romans, Vesuvius was just a mountain, a lush green peak covered in vineyard. They didn't even have a word for volcano. On the morning of August 24, life was normal. Bakers were sliding loaves of bread into oven. Dogs were napping in the courtyard, and merchants were shouting their price in the forum. Then, at midday, the earth shook, and the sky turned into a nightmare, with a road that could be heard for hundreds of miles. Vesuvius exploded. It didn't just leak lava, it blew its top off, sending a column of ash, pumice, and scorched rock 20 miles into stratosphere. For the next 18 hours. The sun vanished. A rain of volcanic stone began to pelt the city, piling up so fast that roof collapsed and doorways were blocked. Panic took hold. Some fled toward the sea, while others huddled in their basement, clutching their jewelry and praying to God who could no longer hear them. The end came with the pyroclastic flow. These were avalanches of superheated gas and ash, moving at hundreds of miles per hour with temperature exceeding 500 degrees Celsius. 930 Fahrenheit. When the first floor hit Pompeii, it was instantaneous. It didn't burn the people, it thermally shocked them, stopping their heart in a fraction of a second. The city wasn't just buried, it was hermetically sealed. The ash rained down until Pompeii was covered under 20 feet of debris, vanishing so completely from the face of the earth that its very location was forgotten for over 2,500 years. When archaeologists finally rediscovered Pompeii in the 18th century, they didn't find just ruin, they found a time capsule of human terror. As the body of the victim decayed over the century, they left hollow cavities in the hardened earth. By pouring plaster into the void, researchers created haunting casts that capture the final, organizing moment of the Pompeians. A man covering his face, a mother clutching her child, a dog struggling against its chains. Walking through Pompeii today is the closest thing we have to time travel. You can still see the road in the stone street from Carius' Well and the beware of dog, mosaic in the entryways of homes. But the silence is heavy. Pompeii is a master class in storytelling because it reminds us that the line between the bustling civilizations and the forgotten relic can be drawn in a single day. Is it a city that Bokhoi evaporated from the map, only to return at a warning that we live at the mercy of the earth beneath our feet? Petra, the farthest of the desert shadows, imagines a city not built with brick or mortar, but echoed from the very mountains themselves, deep in the rocky canyons of modern-day Jordan life. The raw rest city, for centuries, is what the ultimate secret, a fortress of stone so well hidden that while the rest of the world rose and fell, Petrol remained a ghost, whispered about only by the nomadic Bedouins who sought shelter in its shadows. The story of Petrol is the story of the Nabatean, a mysterious tribe of desert nomads who transformed from simpleton dweller into the master architect of the ancient world. They didn't just settle in the desert, they conquered it. They chose a location that was strategically brilliant, a natural basin surrounded by impenetrable cliff, accessible only through a narrow, winding crack in the rock known as the Sikh. Walking through the Sikh today, you feel the weight of the mountains closing in on you, the wall rising to 100-meter height, blocking out the suns. Then, suddenly, the canyons opened, and you are blinded by the sight of Arcanist. The treachery is a massive ornate facade carved directly into the pink sandstone cliff. It doesn't look like a building, it looked like a mirage. The Nabateans didn't use scaffolding. They started at the top and carved their way down, sculpting Greco-Roman columns and intricate gods from the living rock. This was a city of 30,000 people, featuring a theater that seated 8,000, royal tombs that glowed like amber at sunset, and an engineering system so advanced it brought fresh water through miles of deserts to dozens of public fountains. Petra was the Wall Street of the ancient silk and incense trade. Every caravan carrying frankincense from Arabia or silk from China had to pass through the narrow canyons. The Nabateans grew obscenely wealthy by taxing the trader, turning their desert hideout into a cosmopolitan hub of art and culture. For a time, it was the envir of Rome itself, but the very thing that made Petra great, its isolation, eventually became its undoing. As the Roman Empire expanded, they diverted the trade route to the north, slowly, the lifeblood of the city. The gold and the spice stopped flowing. Then, in 363 AD, a massive earthquake startled the city's sophisticated water system and brought the Grand Arc crashing down. The Nabatean Abbey the Nomad eventually drifted away, leaving their stone masterpiece to the vulture and the wind. For nearly 1,000 years, Petra disappeared from the world map. It's become a legend, a lost city that Western explorers spent lifetime trying to find. It wasn't until 1812 when a Swiss explorer disguised himself as an Arab scholar to sneak past suspicious locals that the secret was finally out. Petra is a haunting reminder of what happens when a civilization genius outlies its purpose. The Nabatean carved their legacy into the heart of the earth, believing that storm would never forget. And while the people Bokhoi evaporated, the pink mountains still stand, holding the echo of the kingdom that once commanded the desert, now serving as a silent, sandstone cathedral to human ingenuity. Angkor Wat, the empire's strength by the green abyss. Deep in the sweltering heart of the Cambodian rainforest lies a stone ghost that defies all logic. This is Angkor, the capital of the Khmer Empire. To understand the scale of this place, you must forget everything you know about ancient city. As it peaked in the 12th century, while London was a merry town of 50,000 people, Angkor was a sprawling megacity of over 1 million. It was quite literally the largest pre-industrial city on the face of the earth. A massive grid of temples, palaces, and homes covering an area larger than modern-day New York City. The crown jewel of this empire was Angkor Wat, a temple mountain designed to be a physical representation of the Hindu cosmos. It is the largest religious monument ever built. Its central tower represents the peak of Mount Meru, the home of the god, and its massive moat represents the cosmic oceans. Every inch of its wall is covered in intricate carving of celestial dancers and epic battles. But the real genius of Angkor wasn't just in its stones, it was in its water. The Khmer were the engineers of the monsoons. They built a staggering network of artificial lakes called barrages and hundreds of miles of canal to capture the heavy rain. This allowed them to grow 3 crops a rice a year, fueling an empire that dominated Southeast Asia for 6 centuries. They were so successful that they believed they had mastered nature itself. But nature is a patient enemy. In the 40th and 50th century, the climate began to warm. Decades of surf drought were followed by catastrophic, unpredictable monsoons. The very canal system that made Angkor rich became its Achilles heel. The massive flood washed away the silt, clogged the canal, and shattered the delicate infrastructure. As the water failed, the food disappeared. Internal power struggle and invasions from neighboring Thai kingdom were the final blow. But it's what the environmental collapse that truly broke the city heart. By 1431, the king and the elite abandoned Angkor, moving the capital to Phnom Penh. A million people, farmers, priests, and soldiers, simply drifted away. The city didn't just fall, it was evaporated into the humidity of the jungle. What happened next is one of the most haunting spectacles in history. The jungle moved in. Giant banyans and skill cotton trees began to grow over the galleries, their roots looking like the tentacle of prehistoric monsters, pried apart the stone block, crushing the face of God and strangling the tower. For nearly 400 years, Angkor was a lost city, known only to local monks and a few hidden villages. When French explorers rediscovered in the 1860s, they found a stone civilization trapped in a green cave. Angkor Wat is a masterpiece of storytelling because it shows the terrifying power of the natural world. It's proof that even the most sophisticated technology and the grandest monuments can be erased by the very environment they try to control. Today, as you walk through temples like Tav Pom, where the trees still grip the ruins in a depth embrace, you aren't just looking at history, you are looking at what happened when humanity loses its battle with the wild. Machu Picchu, the sanctuary above the cloud. While the other city on our list fell to climate change or invading armies, Machu Picchu survived because it was invisible. Perched on a narrow ridge 2,400 meters high in the Peruvian Andes, the city the city in the cloud is perhaps the most perfect example of a hidden masterpiece. It is a place where the mountains meet the heaven, draped in a perpetual vase of mist that carries secret state for nearly 4 centuries. Built in the mid-5th century by the Inca imperial particute, Machu Picchu was never intended to be a bustling trade hub or a fortress of war. It was a royal estate, a scarred sanctuary designed for the Inca elite to commune with the suns and the stars. The engineering required to build is nothing short of miraculous, but Inca has no iron tool, no wheel, and no draft animals. Yet they transported massive granite blocks of sheer mountain faces. The true genius of the Inca lies in their masonry. They used a technique called ashlar, where stones are cut so precisely that they fit together without a drop of mortar. These stones are locked together so tightly that even a knife blade cannot pass between them. This wasn't just authentic, it was a survival tactic. Peru is a land of violent earthquake. When the ground trembles, these stones are designed to dance. They shake in place and then settle back into their origins position. While modern buildings crumble, Machu Picchu stands as firm as the day it was finished. But why did shock a masterpiece occur from the map? The answer lies in the tragic collapse of the Inca Empire. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 1530s, They brought stew and horses, but they also brought something far more invisible and deadly, smallpox. Before the Spanish could even find the mountain path leading to the sanctuary, the empire was already hollowed out by disease and civil war. Around 5072, the inhabitants of Machu Picchu simply walked away. They didn't leave behind signs of a struggle or a massacre. They gathered their belongings and disappeared into the high mountain passes, perhaps to join the last remnant of the Inca resistance. To prevent the Spanish from finding their scar site, they likely destroyed the trade leading up the mountains. Their plans worked perfectly. For the next 350 years, the Spanish searched for the fabled lost city of gold, but they never looked high enough. Machu Picchu sat in total silence, slowly being cloaked by the encroaching cloud forest. It became a mist, a story told by local family, but ignored by history books. It wasn't until 1811 when American explorer Hiram Bingham was led up the mountains by a local boy, that the world finally saw the judge peak of the sanctuary again. Machu Picchu is a story of divisions. It is a theory that refused to be conquered, choosing instead to vanish into the cloud. It remains that sometimes the only way to preserve a cultural soul is to hide it from the world. Today, as the mist cleared to reveal the emerged terrace and granite altar, you realize that Machu Picchu never truly died. It just waited for the world to be ready to see it again. Sejans, the drawn lion city. Most of the cities on our list were lost to the slow decay of century or sudden wrath of nature. But Sejans, known as the Lion City, met a fate that was entirely man-made. It didn't crumble under the weight of time. It was swallowed by the tide of modern progress. Today, it lies in a silent, watery grave, 14 meters beneath the surface of Qandao Lake in China, a perfectly preserved Atlantis of the East, found over 1,300 years ago. During the Han and Tang dynasty, Sejong was once the political and economic heart of the Zhejiang province. It earned its name from the nearby Five Lion Mountain, and the city itself was a fortress of art. Imagine a city defined by grand stone gateways, intricate carving of phoenixes and dragons, a narrow cobblestone street that has seen the passes of emperor and poet. It was a place where history was literally etched into the architecture. The city disappearance happened in 1959, and it wasn't a mystery. It was a sacrifice. The Chinese government decided to build a massive hydroelectric dam to power the growing city of Hangzhou. To create the reservoir, they flooded the valley. In a matter of days, the gates were closed, and the water began to rise. The residents of Sejong, who had lived there for generations, were forced to pack their lives into small bundles and leave their ancestral homes forever. As the water reached the top of the city five great gate, Sejong's Bokhui evaporated from the maps, replaced by a vast, man-made lake. For decades, the city was forgotten. Most people assumed that the water and the pressure would have turned to ancient world and turned into a pile of mud. But in 2001, a government dive team went out to see what remained. What they found was a miracle because the water at the bottom of Quendal Lake is cold, dark, and free from the damage effect of sunlight and wind. Science has been perfectly pickled in time. Divers discovered that the wooden beam and stair of the house were still intact. The stone lion graduate, the entrance to the city were still snarling at invisible intruder. Even the delicate carving on the memorial arch remained as safe as the day they were chiseled. It is a ghost town where the clock stopped the moment the water touched them. Sieges is a haunting entry on our list because it is a tragedy of choice. It serves as a reminder that it's our rest to build the future. We often drown the past. Today, only experienced technical diver can visit the Lion City. For the rest of us, it remains a silent, blue-tinted dream, a reminder that some of our most beautiful wonders are hidden right beneath the surface of our own progress, waiting in the dark for a world that might one day value them again. Tycho, the skyscraper of the Stone Age. If you were to fly a drone over the vast immensity of the Guatemalan rainforest today, you might see several large, gray teeth poking through the thick canopy of trees. These aren't natural rock formations, they are the skyscraper of the ancient world. This is Tikal, the beating heart of the Mayan civilizations and once the most powerful city-state in the Americas. At its peak, Tikal was a sprawling metropolis of over 100,000 people, a place where the human spirit reached for the star long before the inventions of the telescope or the engines. Tikal was known to its inhabitants as Yarmuto, and to walk its street 1,000 years ago was to witness a pinnacle of human achievement. The city was dominated by six massive limestone pyramids, some rising over 70 meters into the air. They weren't just buildings, they were portal between the earth and the heavens. From the top of the temple floor, the highest structure in the city, a Mayan king could look out over the endless jungle and feel like a god. Below him, the city was a masterpiece of urban planning, with vast paved plazas, ornate places, and complex pole court where outlets play games that carry the weight of life and death. The people of Tycho were observed with time and the cosmos. They were master astronomers who could predict eclipses and track the movement of Venus with terrifying accuracy. They developed a complex writing system of hieroglyphs and a calendar more precise than the one we use today. Their society was built on the foundations of ritual and trade, exchanging jade, obsidian, and cacao with cities thousands of miles away. Tico was the New York City of the mayor, a place of intellectual brilliance, staggering wealth, and brutal political intrigue. But by the end of the ninth century, the heartbeat of Tico began to fade. The evaporation of this great city is one of the most debated mysteries in archaeology. Tico didn't fall to a single invader or a sudden catastrophe like Pompeii. Instead, it seemed to have been strong by its own success. As the population exploded, the mayor pushed the land beyond its limit. They cleared the forest to build their great monument and to plant corn, causing massive soil erosions and raising temperature. Then the rain stopped. A series of prolonged drought hit the region. In a city that relied entirely on massive reservoirs to store rainwater for its thousands of citizens, the dry seasons become a death sentence. The kings, who claimed to have a direct line to the rain god, lost their authority when the prayer went unanswered. Social order disintegrated where Pirin River city-state turned into a desperate scramble for remaining resources. One by one, the great houses were abandoned. The magnificent plazas, once filled with the incense of Tsar's fire and the cheers of thousands, fell silent. By the year 980, the city of Ichors was the ghost town, the jungle, which the Maya has fought too hard to hold back, began its slow, inevitable reclamations, veins as thick as a man-leg graph around the temples. The root pried apart the limestone block. For nearly 1,000 years, Tycho was lost to the world, known only to the local hunter who spoke of stone giants hidden in the deep past. It wasn't until 1848 that an official expedition finally hiked through the undergrowth to reveal the Great Pyramid to the modern world. Tycho stands today as a haunting monument to the fragility of civilizations. It reminds us that no matter how high we build or how much we think we know about the star, we are ultimately guests of the earth. When they destroy the environment that sustains us, even the most magnificent empire can be swallowed by the green abyss, leaving nothing but stone sentinel to watch over an empty forest. Mohenjo-daro, the city of the enlightened Greek. Close your eyes and try to imagine what the world looked like 4,500 years ago. In most places, humanity was still living in scarred tribalhood, struggling to survive the element. But in the fertile plain of the Indus Valley, in modern-day Pakistan, a miracle of engineering was taking place. This was Mohenjo-daro, arguably the world's first smart city. It wasn't built by a flamboyant king to satisfy his ego, nor was it a temple dedicated to a vengeful god. It was a city built for people, a masterpiece of logic, equality, and hygiene that felt more like a 20th century American suburb than an ancient ruin. When archaeologists first unearthed Mohenjo-daro in the 1920s, they were stunned. They didn't find the chaotic, winding alley typical of Asian city. Instead, they found a perfect grid. The streets were laid out in straight line, crossing at right angle, designed to catch the prevailing wind and provide natural air conditioning for the homes. The buildings were made of standardized, fire-baked brick, all of them exactly the same size, suggesting a level of bureaucratic organization that wouldn't be seen again for millennia. But the true genius of Mohenjo-daro lay beneath the street. Long before the Romans or the Victorians, the people of the Indus Valley has mastered plumbing. Nearly every house in the city has its own private bathing area, and incredibly, a sit-down toilet. These were connected to a sophisticated sewage system, a series of covered grit drains that run alongside the street, carrying waste away from the city, is what a society observed was cleanliness. At the heart of the city sat the Great Bat, a massive, watertight pool lined with bitumen. When the citizens likely gathered for ritual purifications, in the word of field, Mohenjo-daro was a gleaming, sterile sanctuary. Perhaps the most fascinating mystery of the city is what it didn't have. There are no massive palaces. There are no grand temples filled with gold. There are no monuments to individual rulers. Instead, the city seemed to have been governed by a middle class of merchants and craftsmen. It was a civilization that valued authority over vanity and peace over conquest. In the ruin, archaeologists found thousands of exquisite shells, jewelry, and children's toys, but almost no weapons. For nearly 1,000 years, Mohenjo-daro thrived as a beacon of peaceful prosperity. So, how does a city of 40,000 enlightened people simply evaporate from history? By 1900 BCE, the heartbeat of the Mohenjo-daro began to slow. For a long time, historians believed the city was wiped out by violent invasions of Aryans, but modern science has revealed a much more tragic, silent end. There are no signs of a massacre, no burned building, no pile of arrowhead. Instead, the enemy was the river itself, the Indus River, the very lifeblood of the city, was prone to shifting its course. Geological evidence suggests that a series of massive floods, or perhaps a catastrophic driving off of the river tributary, turned the fertile field into a such chalk wasteland. The sophisticated drainage system clogged with silt. The trade route collapsed. One by one, the family of Mohenjo-daro packed their clapboard and their jewelry and work away, seeking a new life elsewhere. For over 3,000 years, the city lay buried under layers of silt and sand. It's really lost to time. We call it Mohenjo-daro today, which in the local language translates to the haunting title, the mouth of the dead. Is it a city that reminds us that civilization isn't just about gold and glory? It's about the system that sustains Earth, and when those systems, the water, the soils, and the climate, fail, even the most advanced society can disappear into the dirt, leaving behind nothing but perfect grid of empty rooms. Annie, the city of 1,001 charms. If you were to stand today on the windswept, desolate plateau in the Kara province of eastern Turkey, right on the edge of the border with Armenia, you would feel a profound sense of isolation. The only sound is the whistling of the wind through the tall, golden grass and the occasional cry of a bird of prey. But 1,000 years ago, this silence would have been impossible. You would have been deafened by the ringing of bells, the chanting of prayers, and the clatter of merchants' caravans from as far away as China and Byzantium. This is Arni, once known as the city of 1,001 churches, a place so magnificent that it was said to rival the glory of Constantinople and Patriot. Ani was the jewel of the Gargatis Armenian kingdom. At its peak in the 10th and 11th century, it was a thriving metropolis of over 200,000 people. It sat strategically on a triangular plateau, protected on one side by a deep ravine and the churning water of the Arcurian River. But Ani wasn't just a fortress, it was a masterpiece of medieval architecture. The Armenians of Ani were pioneers of stone masonry developing technique that many historians believe influenced the later Gothic style in Europe. Imagines a skyline dominated by the church, elegant domes of hundreds of churches, each one more intricate than the last. There was the Cathedral of Ani, a massive structure of red and black volcanic stuff with pointed arches and clustered piers that looked like they were reaching for the heavens. There was the Church of the Redeemer, which housed a fragment of the true cross, and the Church of Saint Gregory, perched precariously on the edge of the ravine. The city was kaleidoscope of art, culture, and deep religious devotion, all found by the incredible wealth of the Silk Road. So, how did a city that stood as a titan of the East Bokhoi evaporate so completely? The fall of any strategy of a thousand cuts is begun with political betrayal. In 1045, the Byzantine Empire, driven by great and religious rivalry, tricked the Armenian leadership into surrendering the city. But the Byzantines were unable to defend what they had stolen. Just 20 years later, the Seljuk Turk breached the massive Dove walls of Ani, beginning a cycle of conquest and reconquest. The city was battered by wave after wave of invader, Georgian, Kurd, and finally the Mongol in the 13th century. Each time the population dwindled and the trade route began to bypass the embattled plateau. But the final, crushing blow didn't come from a human army. In, in 1319, a massive earthquake tore through the city, shattering the domes and bringing the great vaulted ceiling crashing down. The world system failed, the churches were silenced, and the spirit of the city was finally broken. By the 18th century, Ani was a ghost town. The people had moved to smaller, safer villages, leaving their stone corridor to crumble in the suns. For centuries, Ani was a forbidden zone, trapped in the middle of modern border dispute and military tensions. It was a lost city, hidden in plain sight, a place where the border between two nations literally runs through the middle of ruined altar. Today, Ani is one of the most haunting sights on earth. You can still see the half-collapsed dome of the Church of the Redeemer, standing like a broken cell against the sky. You can walk through the empty street where the world would once flowed, now carpeted in white flowers. Annie is a story of a city that stood at the crossroad of the world and was eventually crushed by the very history it helped to write. It is the ultimate rose of the desert that withered and died, leaving behind only the stone echoes of a thousand and one chance. Cahokia, the forgotten capital of the suns. When we think of ancient civilizations and towering pyramids, our mind naturally drifts to the sands of Egypt or jungle of Mexico. But what if I told you that in the heart of the American Midwest, near modern-day St. Louis, there once stood a metropolis so grand that its population was larger than London's. This was Cahokia, the greatest city ever built north of Mexico before the arrival of Europeans, a place of cosmic enlightenment, massive earthen monument, and a mystery so profound that it remained the ultimate ghost of North American history. As its denizens in the 11th century, Cahokia was the center of the Mississippian culture. It was a sprawling urban complex of over 120 man-made 18 miles, stretching across 6 square miles. The city was dominated by the colossal Mock Mound, a four-tiered earthen pyramid that rose 100 feet into the air. To build it, the Mississippians had to move over 25 million cubic feet of earth by hand, one basketful at a time. It remained the largest prehistoric earthwork in the Americas, and from its summit, the city high priced north at the great suns, looked down urban a vast plaza filled with thousands of people gathered for ritual games and ceremonies. Cahokia was far more than a collection of hills. It was a highly sophisticated society with a deep understanding of the star. Just outside the central plaza stood, unhinged, a massive circle of cedar posts that acted as a solar calendar, precisely picking the summer and winter solstice. The city was a trade superpower. Its influence stretched from the Great Lake to the Gulf of Mexico. Archaeologists have found shark teeth, sea salt, and exotic copper, all funneled into this urban hub by a network of rivers. For a moment in time, Cahokia was the sun around which all North America revolved. But by the year 1350, this metropolis of the Mount was a ghost town. The evaporations of Cahokia is perhaps the most chilling on our list because the people who lived there left no written record. They didn't leave behind scroll or stone tablets to explain their existence. They simply stopped being Cahokian. What happened? Liar detective story with no witness. We only have clue. Some skid that the city's massive populations led to catastrophic deforestation, stripping the high side and causing massive flash flood that buried the city cornfield in mud. Other point to a little ice age that shortened the growing seasons and led to widespread famine. There is also evidence of social unrest. A massive wooden palisade, a defensive wall, was built late in the city history, suggesting that the once peaceful trade hub turned into a fortress of fear. But there is no evidence of a final, bloody battle. Instead, it seemed the people lost faith in the system. When the great sun could no longer guarantee the harvest of the safety of the walls, the citizens simply stopped believing in the dream of the city. They broke into smaller groups and drifted away into the wilderness, eventually becoming the ancestor of the Osage, Omaha, and Ponca tribe. By the time the first European explorer arrived, the mountains were already covered in ancient trees. The explorer looked at Long Mount and assumed it was a natural hill, unable to believe that primitive people could have built something so monumental. Cahokia has evaporated so completely that its words erased from a collective memory of the continent. Cahokia is our number one because it challenges our entire understanding of history. It's proof that greatness can exist in our own backyard and still be forgotten. It is a haunting reminder that even the most powerful cities are only as strong as the environment that fed them and the story that bind their people together. When the story ends, the city dies, leaving nothing but hero of earth to whisper to the wind. 10 cities, 10 empires, 10 stories of how human ambitions eventually bow to the power of time, nature, and change. From the gold of Babylon to the eastern mouth of Cahokia, this lost world reminds us that we are all just temporary residents on a shifting map. Which of the Venice city do you think has the most haunting lesson for us today? Let us know in the comment below. If you enjoyed the journey through the center of history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the mysteries of our world. Until next time, keep exploring the story that's time forgot.